Hi everyone, Air here. Welcome to season 2. I know it's been a while since we've been able to talk, and to be honest with you, I've been on a little bit of a vacay lately. But in all of these travels between Europe, I actually found myself in Colombia somehow. Whole different story, whole different podcast. But while I was there, I was attending a yoga school, being able to understand a little bit more about spirituality, the yoga philosophy, but also making new friends. I want to welcome Tamara to the show, where she's a coach and she has a lot to say about spirituality and burnout. But let me actually let her introduce herself. Welcome to the show, Tamara.
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me. Thank you for giving me this platform, Air. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm a coach. I never really liked that term because to me it was like, oh, I'm a life coach. But I'm coming to at peace with it because I think we really desperately need some mentors, some coaches, people to help others go through challenges that we've been through experientially. So there's so much value in theory into learning the different stages of the development of a person's life, but there's also a lot of value in going through something and then being able to take someone else's hand and bring them through it if they have to go through the same thing. So I'm a coach for people who are either headed towards burnout or are in it right now, or they've been there and they don't want to go back there. So there's a lot of prevention, a lot of just creating a life that you love that doesn't bring you there. But if you're in it, I'm also helping people go through it. And it's become something that's more and more prevalent in my life's work and my purpose here. Because for me, burnout, I use the term burnout, which is not a clinical term on purpose, because it's so much more than just being tired out of overworking yourself. It's so much more than that. To me, it's been more like a spiritual awakening. It's been like a dark night of the soul, actually. So that's kind of my approach to it, is bringing it into the spiritual story of someone. So yeah, that's what I do.
I love how you said Dark Night of the Soul, because that was exactly what I was going to reference is if somebody's never heard the word burnout or even Dark Night of the Soul, how do you relate them?
Burnout is like just surrender. It sounds like giving up, but it's not. It's like accepting that you've tried to control everything up to this point, and now you're like, okay, it's not working for me. Your body is giving up, or your mental health is giving up, or both. And that just means okay, universe, like, take over. I will ride the waves. Like, I'll just float on the waves and let you bring me where I need to go. And that often is very similar to a dark night of the soul, where because you're going to the depths of who you are in that moment, like you're going to the highs of the waves, but you're also going into the lows. And in those lows, that's where you see like where all of this control and trying to appear a certain way, and what were the cracks in your structure that made you come to this point. Because a dark night of the soul is usually not something you seek out, it's something that finds you. And why did you get to this point, and why was it inevitable for you to? For me, I think I had burnout in my cards. Like, it was all laid out for me. Like, I needed people to love me, and then for me, my definition of love was I needed to impress people, and we can go into that if you want. I also, so a lot of people pleasing, needing to impress. My my self-worth was based on performance. All of these things made it like sooner or later I was bound to go through this experience, I believe, with my background. But also, I think it's the most beautiful gift I ever could have had, and all in the same sentence. Like, it was the dark night of the soul, but the other side of it is so bright and beautiful and nothing like I could have imagined. Like the word coach, I said. Also, yoga teacher. Like, I feel like those are such stereotypes. And I was like, I will never be that. And here I am.
No, I love that. And I definitely want to get into it because I feel like we have some hardcore dark night of the soul stories that we can share.
Yes.
Because it's not just once either, right? Like you can have so many different versions of the dark night of the soul or so many different versions of burnout.
Mm,
I originally, like when I think of burnout, I think of, the man on Wall Street. He's been clocking in 80 hours and, he just has the bags under his eyes and like the life and like the passion has just kind of drained. Or I
mm.
think of like the overworked mom that like she has like 4 kids and she's doing her best, but she hasn't been able to take care of herself because she's just running around in circles. Is there another way that you define burnout? Because that's like the stereotypes that come to my mind.
Yeah, I was neither of those, but definitely there is a lot of burnout in moms, single moms, moms of a lot of kids, and in the financial industry. I guess I was closer to the financial industry because I was working in the financial, like my clients in consulting were big banks. I was a management consultant, and that's where it kind of started. I was, of course, my path to burnout started when I was a little kid, but I was doing great in university and I had really good grades and I was learning my third language and I was traveling all over the world. So I had really high expectations of myself. We can already like kind of see that in university, but I was thriving on that until I went into an industry where the expectations were higher than what I could meet. I got into this special kind of situation where my coworkers were the expectations were high just from the prestige of the organization where I was in. They hired like the best students in all the best universities type of thing. So prestige. And if you had good grades, that's where the university was kind of grooming you to go into that path. But unfortunately, I was in a specific situation where the expectations on me were nothing like those of my coworkers. It was just a circumstances that kind of piled up so that I had tons of responsibility just coming out of training. So I guess I was similar to this Wall Street person with my own little baggage. And for me, like burnout can be really related to anything. For me, it was work, my relationship to work and productivity. But the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. When you start healing on this front of work and you realize, whoa, I'm people pleasing my coworkers, but I'm also people pleasing with my in-laws, with my family, with my friends. Like I feel obligated to go to these things. So you realize burnout can really come from any aspect of your life. It's just going to be the biggest, most obvious one that comes to light first. But then you see, oh, okay, I'm like this in my intimate relationships, in my love relationships. I'm like this with my health. Like I pushed my body so hard to, eat right, go running, do some workout, sleep enough. Like I was putting so much pressure on myself to have the perfect healthy lifestyle that it was actually unhealthy. So that's like it can come from different places and it will show up in one aspect of your life, maybe more, but in the end it's your whole life and it's so much more holistic than just being tired from work.
I'm starting to put this together for us because we have so much to talk about today. And I'm like, ooh, this could be its own episode, right? Just how do you get to burnout? Do you feel like there's a certain type of person that is groomed or more likely to experience burnout? Or do you think anybody can get to that state?
Many factors to me, and I'm not quoting any research or anything like that. It's just from my personal experience, what I've seen. Women are very much prone to burnout, especially with relationships coming into this, valuing yourself in terms of how you can help others and forgetting yourself. Like I feel like that's kind of a stereotypical female issue, even though men can also fall into that trap. And Westerners, Westerners in the society of always achieving more, thinking your life is supposed to be this straight line of achievement and always getting better year after year, instead of looking at it maybe as a cycle, as seasons. And we're trying to push back the winter as much as we can. We resist the winter from coming because we've always got to be achieving and doing more. And eventually what we do is that resistance just like lengthens that winter that is inevitable anyways. So I think everyone is at risk, but not everyone is going to go through that for depending on what their story is, their lineage, how they grew up in childhood, how they value themselves, the level of self-love, and the society in which they grow. So a bit of both.
I feel like you just inferred like Game of Thrones, but also like Wolf on Wall Street. Like it's just like so many innuendos right there, because I'm right there with you when I'm thinking, okay, what are they actually chasing? Because it's not happiness. Maybe they think that they're going to have a source of like happiness whenever they reach a dollar amount, or they get the next promotion, or they get the credit, or they win the trophy. Like there's all these little, what I would call distraction to what actually matters, and like what actually is going to bring forth like that completed fulfillment within ourselves.
Yeah.
On the road to burnout. And then the dark night of the soul, I feel, is more like an umbrella term for burnout. Like burnout is part of the dark night of the soul. Until you accept this part of you, you can't actually go on this journey to elevate your vibration or to improve your life overall.
Yeah, I think there may be different types of, like you said, it's an umbrella term, so there might be other dark nights of the soul, but I think burnout is one very common, increasingly common way through which people can enter the spiritual world and reconnect with their true or truer essence because the burnout is only an effect. The cause is being all the cracks in your armor, and you think you're this performant, like very high achiever, but then you realize, oh, achieving isn't everything. And also I have limits. Also, I have these things that I need to look at. Oh, this was a mask. And it's really, really hard, but the ego is filled with little traps. Like you'll go into burnout a little bit, but then you'll want to perform and come out of it in 3 months instead of a year, you know? So you come out of it too soon, you come back to work, then you work again, and then there's this running joke in the corporate world, like, how many burnouts have you been through? Like, it's very burnout culture-y, and it's very scary, but it is a joke, and it is real. Like, it's not about if you burnt out, which makes burnout a little bit more acceptable, I guess, but it's how many times. And
like a badge of honor.
What did you say?
It sounds like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
The way you say it. Like,
yeah.
How many burnouts have you had? Like, how many children do you have? Like,
yeah.
Like a badge of honor.
Exactly.
No, I don't want that badge.
I wish I didn't have that badge. I have one under my belt, but I mean, it's not something to be ashamed of, but it's also not something to be proud of per se. It's just everyone's on their path. And I think if you're going to burn out, do it right. It sounds like, again, a performance thing, but no, doing it right means accept that you do not know when it's going to end. Accept that you have value, even though you're laying in your bed all day. And if you have some energy, go for a walk in nature. That's what saved my life. Just go for a walk. And then if you have more energy, then, do something else that will feed you. Don't, if you can, the least possible amount of admin work. Like, of course, you're an adult and you have responsibilities and things like that. But the more you can feed yourself and give yourself the energy to face your shadow, the more you'll enter this virtuous circle where you realize, oh, I can love this part of myself that I always repressed. I can love my jealousy. I can love my unhealthy ambition. And then you can kind of integrate it and make it part of you and see it for what it is, instead of putting on this facade of this perfect person that is a high achiever and someone who's doesn't have anything wrong with them, who's so generous and so loving, but none of that shadow side. And I think that's what burnout is really integrating the shadow.
I love how authentic this is because I feel like I need to look myself in the mirror.
We all do.
Like, this is gonna be fun. It's like just like looking ourselves in the mirror here. But go ahead.
This is the work of a lifetime. So it's also okay to be very happy and satisfied with where you are and not be focused so much on shadow work. Life is seasons, like I said. So it's amazing to be able to enjoy when you're in a stable place in your life. You're like, my relationships are stable, I'm healthy, my family's healthy, like this is the best day ever. Enjoy it. And it's not about constantly being in that, but when you're being called, like your body is shutting down, I wish people didn't have to go this far, but the way society is structured right now, we're kind of pushing ourselves to the very limit. And when you're being called to this work, either by your body, your mental health, your relationships are crumbling, whatever it is for you, then you have to look at yourself in the mirror, like you say, and really face that. Really face that, but with a lot of compassion and love. It's hard to hold that duality.
You said one particular word, and it really struck me because I hear this particular word a lot with people that are battling like being stuck and feeling stuck, not knowing what to do next, or feeling like they're on a stage for everybody. And I go back and forth with this word because sometimes I feel like it's very necessary that we have this and it protects us and it's good for us and it keeps us from being taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
And then other times I feel like it's our detriment. It's what keeps us from unlocking our full potential and connecting with people. But you mentioned the word mask.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say mask, do you fall into either of those categories, or do you think that someone wearing a mask is always a bad thing, or can this be a good thing too?
I love this question. I think everything is about balance. It is very normal for you to go around in the world with a certain level of protection. Like you don't need to be bleeding all of your demons out to every single stranger, even to every single close person. Like there are things that are just for yourself, and that's okay. And it's just about where is the line for you. We all draw our own lines for everything. And authenticity means, what is your authentic persona inside and outside? And how similar are they based on your needs for your life? Like if you're not in a safe space, maybe it's okay for you to know that genuinely inside, you're being as genuinely as you safely can be in this environment. But it's okay to have a mask because that's what it is for. That's it. Your ego has value and it's meant to be there to protect you. So I think, yeah, there's no clear-cut answer on this. I also don't think it should be demonized at all.
Kind of where I was landing with it, because I feel a lot of times people would be like, take off your mask. Like, how dare you wear that? That's fake. That's inauthentic. That's, you're hiding. And sometimes there's a reason we have it on, right? Like, not everybody has the most beautiful intentions for us. Not everybody can hold space for some of our demons all the time. I love how you're like, even the people that are close to us, they didn't need to know everything.
No.
If I shared every single thought that went through my head all day long, like,
Yeah,
pretty sure I would be on, an abandoned island somewhere.
we would have placed you there a long time ago.
You're like, wow, Eric, like, what's up?
Exactly. And it's not to be demonized. And also you talked about being stuck, and I feel like when we're stuck, we're just in the void. We're just in this space where something kind of has ended but the new isn't here yet. And that's what burnout is a lot of the time, because I knew, for example, that I couldn't go back to my old life. But I was like, okay, so then what? Like, you failed the exam. It's like, wrong answer. Next thing. But it's like, okay, what now? Like, what is going to be the next thing? And that was like getting comfortable with the void and like trying to deal with the anxiety of, okay, what next? What next? And I wanted my leave of absence to finish as soon as possible. But the more anxious I was about it finishing, the longer it seemed to stretch out. So being in that void space, I found it to be such a fertile land. It was like everything is possible from here. Like there is this beautiful aspect to it as well. So that's one thing in my yoga teachings as well that has come out a lot, was like being comfortable in the uncomfortable, whether it's a position like an asana, whether it's in the space you are in your life. I think we're constantly in transition. We're people who are constantly evolving, and it would require a lot of energy to stay the same in a world that is always changing. And you know, those people who are like very rigid and always like haven't changed their beliefs once in the past decade, and like they're very solid from the outside, it seems. But that requires a lot of energy and is not necessarily, again, it's a line. Like it's good to be fluid and it's good to be solid, but then it requires a lot of energy not to change, and we're constantly changing whether we kind of like it or not. And so that we are in this void space. I'm sure the audience right now can think of one place in their lives in which they are in this void transition type of space, and they're resisting diving into it and welcoming it and being like, hello, void. Wow. Thank you for being there. I love seeing the infinite possibilities while I see nothing right now.
I love how you also segued our yoga like training into this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pop quiz you because I know that you've got this. Can
Go
you
ahead.
tell us? You actually mentioned every asana should be this way, and I know that our yoga instructors are going to be so proud of us. But every yoga pose should be what?
Okay, I think it is strong and comfortable. Is that what it is?
Totally. I will never tell on you. I will never tell on you. If that's what you're going with, that's what you're going with.
Every asana should be stable and comfortable.
There we go.
Yes, okay.
Comfortable, steady.
There we go. Steady. It's Sanskrit,
Yeah.
so like you choose how you translate it. Is it strong? Is it steady? Is it stable?
That is a great response.
Thanks.
Sutra and was it? I don't remember my Sanskrit. So, but yeah, steady and comfortable. And when you say get comfortable with the void, I feel like that is such a golden nugget for this entire topic, because when everything is black or uncertain and you literally don't know what you're doing tomorrow, you just know that you're trying to do better. Like, to get comfortable with that unknown, like, I didn't reference it as being black. Somebody might reference it as a different color or a different, like, feeling. But I just think of, like, being alone in a room and there's no windows and you just have no idea. You can't even see your hand in front of you. And that's how I'm feeling in those moments of like, okay, dark night of the soul is here or burnout is here. Like, what do we do next? So getting comfortable, like that's a challenge.
I also visualize it as black as well, but not in a bad way. I think like our Western society demonizes color black for some reason, or puts it into a category of right or wrong. But I just see it as black, meaning like everything is possible. You're here. Like you can create anything from this space. And it's very, very, like I said, fertile, something that like the womb space. It's from there, everything grows.
I'm curious, how did you end up? Because you're Canadian. That's another thing we haven't mentioned before. And I love it when we have Canadians on the show. So the nicest people in the world. Uh, Hands down, the nicest people. It makes no sense why you guys are so nice. But like, how did you end up in Colombia at a yoga school?
Intuition, I would say. One of my friends is also a Canadian, one of my childhood friends, and she was in Colombia. She's actually traveling all of South America over like multiple years, and she's doing art in hostels and like getting room and board for painting their walls. It's just amazing the life she's leading. And she just texted me, "Hey Tamara, I think you would love Colombia." She just randomly kind of unsolicited advice, "You should visit Colombia." And I was like, I should visit Colombia. You know what? You're right. So, and I had been thinking about doing a yoga training for a long, long time. And it just kind of brought me back to that. And I was like, oh, okay, let's look for a yoga teacher training in Colombia, which is not, a common connection to make. I think we'll usually go to India or things like that. But for me, I speak Spanish. I love the sun. I felt like it was going to be a good, conducive environment. And I'm also still, even though I'm doing great, I'm still coming out of burnout. And I felt like on my long road to recovery, whatever you can call recovery, whatever that line is, I felt like it was the most conducive for me to not have as much time change, to go in an environment where I spoke the language. I could reconnect with my travel days. I traveled a lot in university. I did international business. And so all of this felt like fuel to me, to my soul. Like what is mine that I have always loved? And learning Spanish, traveling, but doing it in a way that is kind of easier than before. Like I would go backpacking alone in Guatemala, Myanmar, and things like that. But now I just felt like I want to stay in one place, have this container, which is the yoga school, and learn something. I love learning. And with the body moving, all of that, it just felt so perfect. And so I go on Yoga Alliance. There's about 3 schools in Colombia. This one that we went to, I clicked on it and I was like, this is the one. I don't even need to see the third one. I just knew. And I sent an email. There wasn't any space in the room I wanted. But a week later, the spot got the spot got freed out. So I think someone canceled. So that was my sign. I was like, okay, perfect. This is for me. So I booked it. Yeah, let's do it. And then I got really good rates on flights. It just seems like things were flowing very easily. So in that sense, I feel like, okay, let's follow the breadcrumbs, see where that leads. And it was a great experience for me. I really loved it.
I'm trying to put it all together because what you mentioned earlier is like accepting. That's probably the hardest part. It's just accepting, right?
Yes, I still struggle with that. Like, because you've accepted in the past something doesn't mean it's easy in the present to accept a new thing. So it's a constant, we get better at it, but it's the constant muscle that we need to flex.
That's how I feel about patience. I get told often I'm the most patient woman that anyone's ever met. And this is a muscle that doesn't matter what somebody puts in front of me. It is like it's the first time. But acceptance is even harder.
Yes, both. It depends. Or we all have different personalities, right?
I was like, I do not like to accept things. I'm the type of person I'm like, I will defy it to the end, right? I'm the last soldier standing. But acceptance is important, people. Take away acceptance. Don't listen to Air. It's one of those moments. What I say.
Yeah.
And then you were mentioning, remembering your value and like the loving yourself. I'm trying to correlate, could investing and going, like getting your school for yoga or going on a meditation retreat or, what could come off as like escaping and not actually like dealing with the problem. How do you justify that when it comes to burnout? Like, would it be a good idea for somebody to go to a school or a retreat or a
Yeah.
meditation, whatever? For th
It's a good idea, but so it's a
but
yes, but
okay.
situation. So first, make sure you have the energy level, and if you don't, then unfortunately, you got to just listen to your body and do what you can every day that will nourish you just a little. Sometimes it's even watching Netflix, which is considered something not great to do, but if that's all you do in that day because that's all you could do instead of, just sleeping all day, then hey, you watched a show, it was a good show for you, maybe you had a laugh. Like
Mhm.
that's a success. So until you can feed yourself with little things like that, then oh, you have enough energy to get dressed and go for a walk, do that. That's a huge success. And that's really hard for a very overachiever to do because you're used to having your day booked with meetings and like workouts and all of that. And then you're like, I'm supposed to celebrate a walk. That's not even exercise. That's how I felt.
My calorie count did not go up.
Exactly. When you're so used to tracking everything, performing in every single part of your life. So that's a success. But then at one point, it's good to come out of this little bubble of sometimes darkness that you can create in your environment when you're depressed, when you're in that dark night of the soul, coming out of that environment and seeing the world from a completely different perspective. For me, Colombia, its culture, the people there, although we were 10 hours a day in this course, I got there a little early, left a little bit, left over a week later. The people in Colombia, the first thing that came to me was how self-expressed they were and how happy, like it seems like happiness came naturally to them, even though like we know that the living conditions and governmental issues abound. I mean, there are some challenges, but they have an ease of expressing themselves. They'll sing and they'll dance in the street and they'll turn the music up just because they want to without caring so much. Like Canadians, like you said, we're very nice, we're very polite, we're very, and I'm not going to talk for all Canadians, but for myself, I'm very aware of how other people will interpret the way I act. And there is this social understanding that we're polite and that we are very caring of other people. But the shadow side of that, and that's a very good thing to do, but the shadow side is if you bring it too far, you stop being yourself and you stop self-expressing fully. And we Canadians sometimes have to work on that. That's my case at least. And so looking at the Colombians, where for them that's the natural way to be, it seems, on the Caribbean coast, it was very inspiring to me. I was like, I want to bring this joy and this self-expression back home. And so that lens through which you get to see the world and then the teachings from the yoga philosophy also, I had thought about a bunch of these things through my dark night of the soul, through my spirituality, but then it was nice I had pieces of the puzzle that I was already talking about in my column, Instagram. But it was nice to see that someone else, actually thousands of other people for the past 6,000 years have been thinking about this as well and have this whole framework. It just was so fulfilling and so freeing. And it was nice also to have the good food, taking care of your body, working out, like the movement part. It just felt like a very good container so that I don't have to worry about what I eat. I can focus on myself and my personal development. So for all of these reasons, I think it's an excellent idea, and it's not escapism at all. It's just about living your life. It's living a life that is fun, that you can actually enjoy. If you go and you don't have to do anything spiritual, you can go to a surf camp, and that can be the most beneficial thing for your spirituality. Just wake up, surf, grab coffee, take a nap, surf again. That's amazing. That's something that will nourish your soul and will give you the fuel to move forward. So I think it has a lot of value to go out of your everyday life and see something different, look at the world differently for a few weeks, a few days.
You mentioned something that I know because I got to spend a month with you, but no one else knows on the podcast yet about Canadians are known for being nice. Canadians are known for being polite, the sweetest of the sweet. And you shared with me on our journey about how you had a different meditational experience that really brought forth some of your burnouts. And I would think, looking at the outside, brought you to the work that you do today. Do you want to share that story?
I would love to. Yeah. It's in a Vipassana retreat. Not retreat, it's a course. Vipassana course. It's a 10-day meditation course where you learn the Vipassana technique. And you stay there for meditating for 10 hours a day, which is a lot by any standard, I think. And on top of that, you have zero distractions. So you're not talking. It's a silent course. You're just feeding yourself. You're not really having a dinner unless it's your first time. Then you're allowed an apple and like a banana. You don't have your phone, no pen and paper, no interactions with anybody, no reading, no books. So that, for me, the pen and paper was the thing that was the most frightening. For a lot of people, it's like, what? Not talking for 10 days straight? That's impossible. So
That
everyone
sounds like
has,
heaven to me.
yeah, perfect. You should try it if you're curious. Yes.
I'm so curious.
And it brings out things that your regular routine cannot bring out of you. Things that are ripe, that are ready, but they don't have the space to come out because we have so many distractions. We have this conversation or this thing with this person. We know so many people, my job, that all kind of comes out in the first few days where you're overthinking about every single conversation you've had in the past 5 years. I was going to say 5 days, but it's like way more than that. And eventually you've gone broad, you've gone wide, you've thought about it all, and there's nowhere to go but deep. And when I went deep after a few days, and I just want to preface this, like, I don't want to create any expectations for anyone going there. I highly recommend going there to a Vipassana center. They're all around the world. But my second experience was completely different from my first, and I'm the same person. So anyone else's experience is going to be completely different from mine. But this time, the first time I went, I discovered anger. It was an emotion. I had felt frustrated, of course, maybe resentful, but rage and that kind of like fiery anger that makes you cry, I had not felt it, not to this level before, because it was something that, out of being polite, out of being socially accepted, I had never really allowed it to come out. So I suppressed it before I even felt it. It was an automatic thing, and I strongly believe that you can't really suppress anything. It just gets stored somewhere, somehow, energy, psyche, body. It doesn't disappear. And it was ripe and it was on the surface and it had to come out. And I was just angry for about 3 days straight, just angry, and I couldn't scream, and I was just hot. I didn't necessarily have all the thoughts that were connected to every single physical sensation. I had some thoughts about the injustices in my life, because anger is just a normal reaction to injustice. And although I have a beautiful life, I also had a lot of reasons to be angry, like anyone else, a lot of injustices. And I hadn't felt it in the moment. So now I was ready. I was processing all of that pent up anger. And I was feeling so hot in the meditation room. It's segregated between men and women. So it was all these women with their meditation shawls and their blankets and the big socks. And I was there barefoot, as naked as I could. I was allowed to be. And and just the heat that was coming out of my chest, I was sweating. And everyone else was in their blankets. So it was just this whole experience of anger and feeling how it felt in my body and how it moved me. And from this point on, I was able to feel anger as it showed up and use it as great information, knowing, oh, this feels unjust. Oh, okay, I'm angry. Okay, so I need to put a boundary here. I need to place some limits. And that was before I burnt out. But I think that having access to this feeling was a good instigator to later allowing myself to take some time, because without it, it was just enabling me to keep going in the wrong direction. So it became a really beautiful gift. And all these emotions, the ones that we consider negative and uncomfortable, well, first of all, the uncomfortable part is mostly the resistance to it. Actually feeling it feels liberating. Like, take grief, for example. When you resist it, it's like super uncomfortable and you get tense. But when you finally access that vulnerability in you, it's like, it feels like a warm blanket surrounding you. And you're like, I'm so sad. I loved this person so much and they passed away, for example. So it's uncomfortable because of the resistance, but also it's not, if we don't feel those negative emotions, we're missing out on half the human experience. And I think it's important that we all come to this earth to see what's up. What is it to be in a human body? What is it to feel these emotions so intensely? And so there's not one emotion that is superior to the other. It's important to feel them all.
Somebody give this girl another mic.
I want 5 mics around me.
How many mics does she need? Goodness. I love that so much. I'm glad that this is recorded so I can just play it over and over.
Wow. Oh, thank you, Eric.
No, I love how you say no emotion is more valuable than the other, because I feel like often we're told if you're not happy, then, something's wrong. Why aren't you happy? You have the fancy house, you have the loving family, you have, the cool job or whatever it is. And you're like, no, they're all equal emotions. And
Yes.
being able, and I'm not even sure this is how you meant it, but this is how I took it. You can shape shift it if you want. But when you were talking about accessing and leading to like vulnerability, and it feels like someone that you loved passed away, I took that as like my previous self, maybe the business owner, maybe, the girlfriend of the ex, or the, homeowner, whatever it might be. I took that as I loved her. She was wonderful. She was successful. She was brilliant. She, has all these accomplishments. And it's like she died.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is that how you meant it? Or did you mean like somebody literally losing one that they care about, like another person?
Well, I was using grief as another negative, quote unquote, feeling that we avoid and that we resist. So it could have been just someone actually dying, but I think it is true, like especially with anger, related to anger, that we die constantly to ourselves, and we've got to attend 1,000 funerals of who we used to be, and then bring that into relationship with someone and growing, and they have to attend those funerals, and that creates even more, like, it's not from a bad place that people will react negatively to the change in you and you feeling your negative emotions. It's just from being accustomed and loving who you were before, and they just have to deal with the grief constantly of seeing you evolve, and vice versa. And that's what it is to be in a long-term relationship. You're constantly evolving, not knowing who the person is going to become, and grieving that past version of you. And I think that's very, very accurate, the way you said it.
I feel like that's where the dark night of the soul meets isolation, because it's not just relationships. Like, our partners are very significant to us, and they say that you're going to date/marry the same person 7 different ways or 7 different times.
Yeah,
because we're always changing. But like, you'll lose friend group, you'll lose city, you'll lose so much in this chapter of like elevation, but it doesn't feel like elevation, right? It feels like the void.
Mm-hmm.
So I just love how it sounds poetic, but honestly, it's just like real talk coming from you of like, yes, this is vulnerable. Yes, somebody died, but it's not the end of the world, right? It's actually like a new beginning if you can like slightly shift your eyes. And I'm speaking to myself. I'm not even speaking to anyone else right
I
now.
love that.
Like straight up saying, Air, if you can just try your best, you stubborn girl, to look the other way. But
Yes.
I want to like value your time. Now we're running up on the hour. I want to do like a short, like 5-question speed round since you are the burnout coach and see if you, when it comes to these questions, if you think that they are affiliated with burnout and how, but
Yep.
try to like answer it within like 30 seconds.
Perfect.
All right.
Challenge accepted.
I'm going to preference this with during our yoga school. She was actually my sacral sister to tell you a lot about our chakra energies and how we got partnered up, because this is like one of those drawing out of the hat. You don't know what's going to happen until it happens. So when it comes to competing in games and passion and like, let's go for it, motivation, this is my twin, guys. So this is my sacral sister. All right. Okay. I love how you're like warming up your hands too. I can hear it.
I'm ready.
I can too. That's why I'm laughing. Okay. All right. Would you find yourself impatient or snapping at others if you're experiencing burnout?
Yes. Dot. Less than 30 seconds. Done. At least that was my experience. It was my experience that I literally said this to a coworker. I was like, is it allowed to say the B word on this podcast?
We'll come to a witch. How about that?
Okay, perfect. I was becoming a cold-hearted witch in my passive-aggressive emails and in the way I interacted with, people trying to stab me in the back in the corporate world. Like out of my environment, I was becoming snappy and impatient, and I could really sense that. And it wasn't me. I really felt like this wasn't who I am truly inside.
Okay. How do you think food, alcohol, and drugs help cope with burnout?
I think healthy food can. Alcohol and drugs, I don't think they really can. For me, the alcohol, I really cut down on that because I couldn't feel 1% more like crap. I'm trying not to swear. I couldn't feel 1% worse the next day. So I couldn't drink that much. I know some people will actually, in that situation, will feel like I need to escape and I need to drink more. And I'm lucky that I didn't have that propensity. But I think that it's a depressant, and the more you go into that, the more you're going to feed the demon instead of feeding the light in you that accepts and welcomes the demon. So there's the food, the alcohol, the drugs. Please feed your body. Everything starts with the body. If you feed your vessel well, and we all know what that is, and it's different for each one of us. We know how we react to certain foods. Just the more you feed yourself, the more you'll feed your energy and your vitality and be back to normal without putting too much pressure on yourself. Like, cut yourself some slack, be compassionate when you can't rise to that occasion, especially if you can't cook. Sometimes craft dinner is going to be the only food you can put in your stomach right now because you don't have any more apples and you can't go to the grocery store. So give your best and accept that every day your best is going to be different. Okay, that was way more than 30 seconds.
I wasn't gonna say it. You just have to make the next 3 like super right?
Perfect.
It all comes out in the wash. All right. So next one. Let's say that you are experiencing burnout and you are in a relationship or you are living with your family. Is it important during this time to break off relationships that you could be damaging or hurting? Or is it more important for you not to be alone?
Ooh, I love this question. I think we all have someone that really sees us, that really is supportive to us and doesn't judge us. I really hope you have one person in your life that can be that for you. Keep them close. Remember that they were there through the darkness with you, but don't try to pay them back right now. Just remember how important they were and carry them with you in the light later. But if anyone is judging you and adding more pressure to the pressure you put on yourself already, I think it's much better for the time being, just boundaries, set some space, and you can deal and find long-term solutions later. But for the moment, protect your space, protect your energy.
Okay. Is it more concerning to be bored or overwhelmed during burnout?
I would tend, I think everything is, there are extremes and you can set your line where you want it to be, but I would say hyperstimulation is the enemy here because it's just like the drugs and the alcohol. It's just a way to escape the realness that is trying to come out of you right now in your dark night of the soul. And being bored is actually going to help you face that. So I would err towards better to be bored than hyperstimulated.
Okay. And then my last one is going to be pretty obvious. If you could say anything to someone that is experiencing burnout or the dark night of the soul right now and they're listening to you, and it's the only 30 seconds that they listen to on this entire podcast.
No pressure.
Like, no pressure.
Nothing is forever. I want to congratulate you on welcoming the winter into your life. And it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot to accept and surrender and let go. And the spring will come. The spring will come. Nothing lasts forever. And because you're allowing the winter, the spring will come. That's it.
So you're coming out with a book soon, right?
Yes. Not yet, but I will let you know when I do, because it is in my long-term plans and dreams for sure.
So tell us, how do we find you before you come out with this book?
Until then, you can find me. The platform I'm most active on is Instagram. So I'm Tamara Coaching on Instagram. Find me there. I post stories. I live in a beautiful winter wonderland. I travel. I give you the little behind the scenes in my stories, and post reels and content related to burnout, related to spirituality, related to yoga. It's all connected. Yoga brings the body, the mind, the soul all together. And it's like we just established, probably first question, like what's the connection with spirituality and burnout? It's all connected together. So that's what I share on Instagram. Tamara Coaching is my handle, and on different podcasts. And I want to start my own podcast very soon, but I cannot say more about that right now.
All in good time.
Yes, absolutely. My website is tamararoystang.com if you want to go and check out the different offerings that I have as well. So I got private coaching. I have some different group coaching containers that start at specific dates and end at specific dates. So check out what is available right now. And some master classes as well. So a lot to dive into.
So if you're having burnout, we have a solution. You're telling me.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a delightful talking with you for a month, and then I needed more, evidently. So thank you for talking with me again and sharing your value and your space and your wisdom. So
thank you, Air, for asking these beautiful questions. I really loved all of the questions. Like, they're so thoughtful and designed for the guests. So thank you so much for having me, and thank you to the audience for listening. And I look forward to meeting virtually every single one of you.